Far out in the black sea of space, where no sunlight reached and no ship passed often, there floated a small, forgotten repair station. It was old and dented, covered with dust from 1,000 passing asteroids. The only sound inside was the hum of old machines and the soft hiss of air vents that barely worked. This lonely station was home to Jake Rell, a human mechanic who had once worked on big starships. Now he was just a man alone with his tools and his thoughts. His days were slow. He woke up, checked the oxygen filters, ate a tasteless meal from a silver packet, and then worked on small repair jobs sent through the network. He was always waiting for something to break, or for someone to call him for help, just to feel useful again. Jake had a small robot assistant named Pix, a floating round bot that spoke in a cheerful tone that sometimes made the silence worse. "Good morning, Jake. Air pressure stable. Systems boring as always," Pix would chirp. Jake would sigh and reply, "Yeah, another exciting day in paradise." He wasn't old, not yet, but life on the edge of space aged a man fast. Out here, stars were distant and people were just voices on broken radio lines. Sometimes Jake forgot what real laughter sounded like. At night, when the stars glowed cold outside the window, he'd stare into the emptiness and think about Earth, about people, noise, light, and touch. He couldn't remember the last time someone had shaken his hand. The station felt like a ghost that he lived inside of. Then, one night, everything changed. Jake was fixing an old power coil when his radio suddenly hissed to life. Static filled the room like a storm. At first, he thought it was another system glitch, but then he heard it, a soft, broken voice between the crackles of sound. "Please, someone, help me." Jake froze. It wasn't a system. It was a distress call. He turned to Pix. "Track that signal." Pix beeped and spun its sensors. "Origin unknown vessel. Very weak signal. Coordinates. 15,000 kilometers from here." Jake frowned. That was deep in the untraveled zone, a place where pirates or failed explorers sometimes drifted. Still, he couldn't ignore it. No one should die alone in the dark. He rushed to his ship dock, an old shuttle patched together from junk parts. As he started the engines, the lights flickered, but they held. Pix floated beside him. "Are you sure this is safe, Jake?" Jake smirked. "Since when has space ever been safe?" He followed the signal through the black, guided only by faint pings on his radar. The stars looked like cold eyes watching him pass. After 20 long minutes, something appeared in the distance, a massive shadow drifting slowly. It was a cargo ship, broken and silent, its lights out, hull torn open like a wounded beast. Jake's heart beat faster. He connected his radio. "This is mechanic Jake Rell responding to distress signal. Anyone alive aboard?" Static. Then the same trembling voice came again, closer this time. "Please, help me. They left me here." Jake's hands tightened on the controls. He aligned his shuttle with the ship's airlock and docked. The metal doors screeched as they opened. The smell of burnt wiring and cold air filled the corridor. His flashlight cut through the dark as he moved carefully inside. The cargo ship looked like it had been through a battle. Panels melted, walls cracked. He stepped over debris, calling out, "Hello? I'm here to help." No answer. Then he saw her. In the corner of a room near the flickering light of a broken console sat a figure, large, curved, wrapped in a torn silver blanket. Her skin shimmered faintly, a strange soft purple that reflected his light like water. Her eyes were big and silver gray, full of fear and exhaustion. She looked at him and whispered weakly, "No man wants me. Please don't leave me here." Jake froze. He had seen many alien species, but never one like her. Her face was round and gentle, her body full and strong, not thin or sharp like most aliens he'd met. She looked both fragile and powerful at once. He knelt down beside her. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. I'm here." Her eyes blinked slowly as if she didn't believe him. "You are human?" "Yeah, name's Jake. I run a small repair station nearby." "Can you move?" She shook her head weakly. "My ship destroyed. My home gone. No one will come for me." Something inside Jake stirred, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Empathy. He took off his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. "Then I'll take you with me. We'll figure it out, all right?" For a moment, she just stared at him, like no one had ever said that to her before. Outside, the ship creaked under the pull of nearby debris. The silence of space pressed against the windows. Jake stood and looked around one last time before leading her back to his shuttle. Pix floated nervously. Jake, this creature is unknown species. Are you sure? Jake cut him off. She's alive. That's all that matters. As the shuttle pulled away from the wreck, the alien woman turned her eyes to the stars. Her lips trembled, and a single tear floated upward in the low gravity. Jake didn't know her name yet. He didn't know her story, but something deep inside told him. His lonely days on the station were about to end forever. The journey back to the station was silent, except for the low hum of the engines. Jake kept glancing at the strange alien woman sitting across from him. She was wrapped in his jacket, her wide silver eyes fixed on the stars outside the small window. Every few seconds, her chest rose and fell slowly, as if she was afraid to breathe too much. Pix floated near the control panel, its blue light blinking. Jake, it whispered in its usual cheerful tone, now quieter. Are we keeping her? Jake sighed. We're helping her. That's all. But even as he said it, he felt something shift inside him. A strange pull, the kind he hadn't felt in years. There was something about her presence. Something sad. Something heavy, but not in a bad way. When they reached the station, the lights flickered to life automatically, welcoming them home. Jake helped the alien woman out of the shuttle. She walked slowly, almost shyly, her steps soft on the metal floor. The low light made her purple skin shimmer faintly like moonlight on water. Careful, Jake said, guiding her by the elbow. There's a loose plate on the floor near the door. She nodded, her silver eyes glancing around the station. You live alone here? Yeah, Jake replied. Just me and Pix. She looked at the small robot and smiled a little. And your little friend, Pix beeped proudly. Hello, unknown species. I am Pix, assistant and conversation partner. Her smile grew faint, almost sad. Conversation partner, she repeated softly as if the words hurt a little. Jake pointed toward a chair. Sit down. You need rest. She obeyed, but when she sat, the chair creaked loudly under her weight. She froze, embarrassment flashing across her face. Her big hands clutched the sides of the seat and she looked away quickly. I'm sorry, she murmured. I am too heavy. I break things, Jake frowned. Hey, it's fine. That chair's been ready to break for months. He gave a small grin. It's not you, trust me. She didn't answer, just nodded slightly, still looking down. Jake fetched a water bottle and handed it to her. Here, drink, you're dehydrated. She hesitated, then took it with both hands. Her fingers were thick and strong, but gentle. She drank slowly as if she hadn't tasted clean water in days. After a long pause, Jake asked softly, What's your name? Her eyes lifted to his. Lyra, she said quietly. My name is Lyra. Lyra, Jake repeated. Nice name. She smiled again, just a small, tired smile, but it changed her face. For a moment, she didn't look like a survivor. She looked almost beautiful. Jake wanted to ask more, but he saw how her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. You should rest. There's a cot in the storage room. I'll fix it up. When he stood, she suddenly said, No man wants me. The words were soft, but they cut through the air like a blade. Jake stopped mid-step and turned. What did you say? Lyra's eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. No man wants me, she repeated, voice trembling. Not on my world. Not anywhere. They said I am too fat, too strange, too ugly to be chosen. Jake stared, unsure what to say. She looked down again, ashamed, as if the words themselves were forbidden. They laughed when I tried to work among them. She continued softly. They said I should hide. I ran away. My ship, it broke. Maybe it was my punishment. Jake felt anger burn inside him. Punishment? For what? For existing? She didn't answer. Her gaze stayed fixed on the floor. Jake walked closer, leaning on the workbench beside her. Listen, he said, voice firm. You don't have to explain anything to me. You're safe here, all right? I don't care what they said. Lyra looked up slowly. Her eyes met his, and for a second Jake saw something on a flicker of hope, faint but real. Thank you, she whispered. You are different, he shrugged awkwardly. Maybe. Or maybe I just hate bullies. Pix hovered closer, scanning her quietly. Vitals stabilizing. Heart rate high. Emotional stress detected. Jake shot at a glare. Pix, maybe stop announcing that. Lyra laughed softly. A deep, warm laugh that echoed around the metal walls. It was the first laugh Jake had heard in months, and for a second, he forgot about the empty coldness of space. After she ate and rested, Jake checked her damaged ship through the scanner. "Engines are fried," he muttered. "Hull's cracked. It'll take weeks to fix, if it's even fixable." Lyra stood behind him watching. "Then I will not leave yet," she said quietly. Jake turned to her. "You can stay here as long as you need." Her silver eyes blinked slowly, shining under the dim light. "You mean that?" "I don't say things I don't mean," Jake replied. For the first time since he met her, Lyra smiled fully, a soft, honest smile that warmed the cold air. "Then I will help you fix things," she said. "Maybe I can be useful," Jake chuckled. "Deal, but no promises on the chair." Pix beeped cheerfully. "New crew member detected." As the night fell over the lonely station, Jake realized something strange. The silence that used to haunt the place was gone. The air felt different, warmer somehow, and though he didn't say it out loud, Jake knew it. The lonely station wasn't so lonely anymore. The first morning after Lyra arrived, the space station felt different. It wasn't just the quiet hum of the engines or the flickering lights, it was something in the air. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. Jake woke up to the faint sound of movement. He rubbed his eyes and blinked. The smell of warm food filled the small kitchen, something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Lyra was standing near the heater, turning a small pan with clumsy care. The food was simple, protein cubes fried in oil, but she had arranged them neatly on a plate as if it mattered. Jake stopped at the door, surprised. "You're cooking?" She turned, smiling shyly. "You humans eat these things, yes? I found them in the cabinet. I hope I did not ruin them," he chuckled, scratching his beard. "Ruined? They've never looked better." Pix floated in behind him, blinking blue. "Warning. Unauthorized use of station resources detected." Lyra laughed softly, and the sound echoed warmly through the cold metal room. "He is very serious, your little friend." Jake waved it off. "Ignore him. He thinks he's the boss." They sat at the small metal table. Lyra ate slowly, her silver eyes curious, watching how Jake held his fork and chewed. She tried to copy him, awkward but graceful in her own way. Jake noticed something strange about her. She moved carefully, as if afraid of taking up too much space. Her voice was gentle, but her hands were strong. Every time she spoke, it felt like her words carried both kindness and old pain. "So," Jake said between bites, "you said your name's Lyra. Where were you headed before your ship got hit?" She looked down, tracing the rim of her plate with her finger. "Nowhere, I was just leaving." "Leaving what?" She hesitated. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "My home. My people." Jake leaned forward. "Why?" Her gaze turned distant, lost in memory. "Because they made me feel small," she said. "Not with words. With looks. Every day I was told I was wrong. Too heavy, too big, too much of everything. They called me names. They said no one would ever love me." She smiled sadly. "I thought maybe the stars would be kinder." Jake didn't know what to say. He had seen pain before, soldiers, miners, lonely travelers, but something about Lyra's voice hit deeper. Maybe because he understood it. He too had run away from a world that didn't need him anymore. "You know," he said slowly, "out here no one cares how you look. The stars don't judge." Lyra's lips curved into a soft smile. "Maybe that is why you live here," he laughed. Maybe. The days passed quietly. They worked together, Jake teaching her how to repair panels, Lyra lifting heavy crates with ease. She was stronger than she looked. Once she carried a metal beam alone that Jake usually struggled with. Pix watched her with cautious curiosity. "New helper is efficient," the little robot said. "Possibility of replacement detected." Jake rolled his eyes. "Relax, Pix, you're still the brains." At night, they would sit near the window, staring at the endless stars. Lyra often asked about Earth, its oceans, its green lands, and the taste of rain. Jake told her stories, some true, some half-remembered, just to see her eyes light up. But there was always a shadow behind her smile. Sometimes Jake caught her staring at her reflection in the metal wall, touching her round face, as if trying to imagine herself as someone else. One evening, Jake walked into the workshop and found her crying quietly. She wiped her tears quickly when she saw him. "I broke your wrench," she said, forcing a laugh. Jake looked at the tool. It wasn't broken, just bent slightly. "That's easy to fix," he said. Then more softly, "But I don't think that's why you're crying." She looked down. "I dreamt of them again. The ones who mocked me." Her voice trembled. Even far away, they find me in my sleep. Jake took a slow breath, then said, "You're not there anymore. You're here. And here you're safe." Her silver eyes met his. "Why are you so kind to me?" Jake smiled faintly. "Because once someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. Guess I'm just passing it on." Lyra blinked, her tears catching the light. For a moment, the air between them felt heavy, not with sadness, but with something deeper. The days became weeks. The two worked side by side, eating, fixing, laughing. The small station, once gray and lifeless, began to feel alive. There was warmth, conversation, even music. Lyra had found an old radio and liked to hum along with the static. But deep in her heart, she still carried a quiet fear. Every time the communication scanner beeped, she froze. Every time a shadow passed outside the window, she turned pale. Jake noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked one night. Lyra shook her head. "Nothing," she lied, "just remembering." But Jake knew. Somewhere out there, someone had hurt her, and maybe they were still looking for her. And though he didn't say it aloud, he made himself a silent promise. If anyone came for her again, they would have to go through him first. Weeks passed, and the old station changed in quiet ways. Where there was once only silence, now there was laughter. Where there was dust, now there was light. Jake and Lyra worked side by side every day, fixing old engines, repairing ship parts, sharing stories about their worlds. Sometimes Lyra sang softly while she worked. Her voice was low and warm, and it filled the station like a gentle fire. Even Pix, the noisy little robot, went quiet when she sang. Jake didn't say it out loud, but he liked having her there. He liked the sound of her footsteps, the way her presence filled the cold halls with life. One morning, Jake was checking the sensors when Pix suddenly beeped sharply. "Unidentified ship approaching. Distance 8,000 kilometers and closing." Jake frowned. "That's strange. We're not expecting anyone." Lyra froze. The wrench slipped from her hand and clattered on the floor. Her silver eyes widened. "What kind of ship?" she asked quickly. Jake glanced at the screen. "Cargo type. Medium-class freighter. Looks harmless," but Lyra didn't look calm. Her hands trembled. They might not be harmless." Jake looked at her. "You know them?" She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe." Moments later, a deep rumble echoed through the metal walls, the sound of engines docking. Jake grabbed his gloves and walked to the main hatch. Pix followed, buzzing nervously. "Stay here," Jake told Lyra, "just in case." But Lyra shook her head. "If they are who I think, they will want to see me." "I can't hide forever." The airlock hissed and the door slid open with a metallic growl. 3 figures stepped inside. They were tall, lean aliens with pale blue skin and long, sharp faces. Their uniforms glimmered with gold lines, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. The one in front smiled, not kindly. "Well, look at this," he said. "We thought we smelled something familiar." "Lyra of House Venn," Jake's jaw tightened. He didn't like the way the man said her name, like an insult. Lyra stepped forward, her head low. "You shouldn't be here," the alien laughed. "We came to check if the rumors were true. The fat daughter of Venn, hiding in a junk station with a human." He turned to Jake and smirked. "You must be desperate, human mechanic. You keep beasts now?" Jake's blood boiled. He didn't move for a moment, but his hands clenched into fists. "Watch your mouth," he said coldly. The alien tilted his head, mocking. "Oh, will you fight for her?" Pix beeped. "Warning. Aggressive tone detected. Suggesting distance of 2 meters for safety." Lyra's eyes filled with shame, but Jake stepped between her and the visitors. "You don't talk to her like that in my station. You don't breathe my air if you can't show respect." The aliens laughed. The leader took a step closer. "You would defend her? She's nothing. Her people rejected her. Even her own family erased her name." Jake's voice was calm but dangerous. "Then maybe her family's full of fools," the alien sneered. "You'll regret this, human." Jake grabbed a wrench from his belt, heavy, old, and made of steel. He lifted it slowly, eyes locked on the leader. "Maybe, but you'll regret staying here." For a moment, no one moved. The hum of the air vents was the only sound. Then the alien spat on the floor and motioned to his men. "Let's go. This place stinks of rust and pity." They left, their laughter echoing through the corridor. When the airlock sealed again, silence filled the room. Jake turned to Lyra. She was shaking, her hands pressed against her chest. They found me, she whispered. They'll tell the others. They'll come back. Jake set down the wrench and took a slow breath. Then let them come. Lyra looked up at him, eyes wide. You don't understand. They're powerful. My father's people. I don't care who they are, Jake said firmly. You're under my roof now. No one bullies my crew. Her lips parted slightly as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Crew? Jake smiled faintly. That's what you are, Lyra. You work here, eat here, help me fix this place. You're part of it. For the first time in days, Lyra's shoulders eased, but behind her eyes, fear still lived. A shadow that wouldn't leave. That night, Jake stayed awake long after the lights dimmed. He sat by the window staring out at the stars, thinking about those visitors and their cruel laughter. He had seen men like that before. The kind who thought power made them better. But there was something else that bothered him. The look in Lyra's eyes when she said they'll come back. He knew she was right. And deep inside, he also knew this was no longer just about fixing ships. It was about protecting someone who had never been protected before. The lonely mechanic had found a reason to fight again. The days after the visitors came were heavy and silent. Lyra barely spoke. She moved quietly through the station, doing her work, fixing small things, cleaning, helping Jake, but her eyes no longer shone. She often paused mid-task and stared at the stars as if waiting for something bad to appear. Jake noticed. She was still kind, still gentle, but she seemed far away, like her mind had drifted back to a place she didn't want to remember. One night, while checking the systems in the control room, Jake found something strange. The station's scanner had recorded fragments of data from Lyra's crashed ship. He hadn't looked at it before, but curiosity pushed him to open it now. Lines of alien code filled the screen. Broken logs, status reports, voice messages. One line caught his eye. Directive target Lyra of House Venn, status exile confirmed. Termination approved. Jake froze. Termination? He read further. The logs were short, damaged, but clear enough to tell the truth. Her ship hadn't broken by accident. It had been sabotaged. Someone wanted her dead. He felt a cold chill run through him. Pix, he said. Decode the symbol here. Pix beeped. That is the insignia of the Venn Council, high-class authority. The same symbol worn by the visitors. Jake leaned back, running a hand through his hair. So they weren't just bullies. They were sent to finish what they started. He turned toward the living quarters. Lyra was there, sitting by the window, staring out into the stars again. He walked over quietly. Lyra, he said gently, we need to talk. She looked up, startled. What's wrong? Jake sat across from her and placed his datapad on the table. Your ship didn't crash by mistake, he said. Someone did it. Someone wanted you gone. Her face went pale. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she took a slow, shaky breath. I knew it, she whispered. Part of me always knew. Who did this, Lyra? Jake asked. She looked down, hands trembling. My family, she said softly. My own blood. Jake stared at her, unable to speak. Lyra continued, her voice heavy but steady. I am, or was, the daughter of House Venn, one of the ruling families on my world. My father is a nobleman. My mother, a diplomat. On my planet, beauty means power. Only the perfect ones are allowed to lead. The rest are ignored. She paused, looking away. When I was born, my father was disappointed. I was large, not thin, round, strong, but not what they wanted. They told me I was a mistake. When I was older, they sent me to the outer colonies, said it was for education, but really it was to hide me. Her voice trembled as she continued. I tried to prove my worth. I studied, worked, tried to serve them. But every time I returned, they laughed. One day I spoke against the council. I said that people like me deserve to be seen too. Jake clenched his fists. And they punished you for that? They said I brought shame to my name, Lyra whispered. They sent me away again. Only this time they made sure I would never come back. For a moment the room was quiet. Only the low hum of the engines filled the air. Jake finally spoke. So they tried to kill their own daughter just because she didn't fit their idea of perfect. Lyra nodded slowly. To them I was a flaw, a stain on their name. Jake looked at her, anger rising in his chest. Then they're monsters. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes wet. No, they are what they were taught to be. I was simply born wrong in the wrong place, he shook his head. You weren't born wrong, Lyra, you were born real. That scares people like them. She blinked, tears slipping down her cheeks. Why do you say such things, Jake? Because it's true, he said. You're stronger than anyone I've met. You survived being hated, being hunted, and you still help others. That's more beauty than your entire House Ven could ever understand. For a long time, Lyra said nothing. Then with a soft sob, she covered her face. Jake didn't move closer, he just sat there, giving her the space to cry, the space no one had ever given her before. After a while, she spoke again, voice small. They will come again, Jake. When they know I live, they will not stop. Jake looked out the window at the endless stars. Then we'll be ready this time, she shook her head. You can't fight them. They are powerful, he smiled slightly. I've fought worse. Machines, pirates, loneliness. Power doesn't scare me anymore. Lyra looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. You would risk your life. For me? Jake shrugged lightly. For you? Yeah, for what's right. Always. The stars outside gleamed cold and distant, but inside the station, something warm grew between them. Something stronger than fear. Brighter than any sun. And for the first time since her ship fell from the sky, Lyra began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was meant to survive. The silence before the storm lasted 3 days. Lyra and Jake worked in the station, trying to act normal, fixing panels, checking scanners, repairing small engines, but neither of them truly breathed. Something in the air felt wrong, too still, too quiet. Every few hours, Lyra would glance toward the starfield outside, her silver eyes reflecting fear. She didn't need to say it. Jake already knew. They were coming. That night, the sensors confirmed it. Pix's alarm blared suddenly, its mechanical voice sharp and urgent. Warning! Multiple ships approaching fast, unidentified, matching House Ven military patterns. Jake rushed to the control panel. The scanner showed 3 ships arrow-shaped, slicing through the black. Their signal beacons glowed red, not for trade or rescue, but for war. Lyra froze where she stood. They found me. Jake looked at her. Then we make sure they don't take you. The old mechanic moved quickly, his hands steady even as his heart raced. He pulled open panels, rewired circuits, and powered up systems that hadn't been touched in years. Pix, he barked. Arm the defense grid. Connect reactor lines 3 through 6. Pix beeped nervously. Reactor overload risk high. Yeah, Jake said grimly. That's the idea. Lyra stepped beside him, her voice shaking.
Jake, their ships have shields.
You can't fight them with scrap metal. Maybe not, he said, but I can make them bleed for every inch. She placed her hand on his arm. I won't let you die for me. He turned, eyes fierce. You think this is about dying? No. This is about living. About not letting people like them decide who deserves it. Lyra stared at him, silent. Then slowly she nodded. Then I fight too. Outside, the stars twisted with light as the warships drew closer. A voice crackled through the comms. Cold, cruel, and familiar. Lyra of House Ven, you are ordered to surrender yourself. Resistance will result in termination of all life aboard that station. Lyra stepped forward and grabbed the microphone. Her voice trembled, but her words were steady. You already tried to terminate me. It didn't work, Jake grinned. Nice, the ships began to circle the station like wolves. Their weapons powered up, casting red beams across the hull. Pix now, Jake shouted. The defense cannons, old, rusted, and half-broken, came to life, firing bright bursts of plasma into the dark. The shots hit the first enemy ship, rocking it sideways. The others answered with fire. Explosions shook the station. The floor trembled beneath them. Sparks flew across the control room. Shields at 40%. Pix yelled. Reroute power from the living quarters. Jake shouted back. We don't need comfort, we need survival. Lyra was already at the other console, her large hands moving fast, faster than Jake expected. They are trying to board us, she said. I'm locking the airlocks. Another blast hit the side of the station. The lights flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jake gritted his teeth. They're not giving up. Lyra looked at him, eyes glowing faintly with defiance. Neither am I. For every shot the attackers fired, Jake sent one back. For every blow they landed, Lyra found a way to patch the systems. Together they moved like one. Mechanic and exile, human and alien. Two souls who had nothing left to lose but each other. Then came the breach. Pix screamed, "Hull compromised!" "Deck 3, incoming boarding party." Jake grabbed his plasma cutter, the closest thing to a weapon he had, and ran. Lyra followed, her heavy footsteps echoing behind him. When the door burst open, 3 alien soldiers stormed through in silver armor. Jake didn't hesitate. He swung the plasma cutter, hitting the first soldier square in the chest. Sparks flew. The alien fell. Lyra roared, a deep, thunderous sound Jake had never heard from her before, and lifted a heavy crate, throwing it like it weighed nothing. It smashed into the second soldier, knocking him down hard. The third aimed a blaster, but Jake tackled him, grabbing the weapon and firing it straight back. The alien collapsed, smoke rising from his armor. For a moment, silence. Then Jake turned to Lyra. "You okay?" She nodded, breathing hard. "They will not stop, Jake. They will keep coming until—" Her words were cut short as the entire station shook violently. Pix's voice came through, panicked. "Main reactor overheating. We cannot sustain shields," Jake cursed. "They're overloading the core." Lyra's eyes went wide. "If the reactor blows, we die." Jake's mind raced. "Then we use it before it kills us, or what do you mean?" He turned to her, determination burning in his eyes. "We vent the reactor heat directly into their ships. If they want to fight, I'll give them a sun." Lyra stared for a second, then nodded. "I'll handle the power reroute." They ran to the control deck, alarm screaming all around. Lyra slammed her palms onto the console, entering codes in her own language. The floor glowed red beneath them. "Ready," she shouted. Jake grabbed the lever and looked at her. "On 3? Lyra met his eyes and smiled faintly. "On 3. 1. The walls creaked. 2. The reactor roared like thunder. 3. Jake pulled the lever. A blinding light burst from the core, a wave of raw energy tearing through space. The enemy ships were caught in the blast, their shields collapsing in seconds. One exploded instantly. The others broke apart, spinning into the void. Then silence. When the glow faded, the station hung quiet again. Smoke drifted through the corridors and alarms blinked weakly. Lyra leaned against the wall, exhausted but alive. Jake sat beside her, covered in dust and burns. "You did it," she said softly. He smiled tiredly. "No, we did it." Through the cracked window, they watched the wreckage drift away. The stars looked brighter than before. For the first time, Lyra didn't look afraid of them. The station floated in silence. The battle was over, but the scars remained. Twisted metal, burned walls, and the smell of smoke that refused to leave. The stars outside shone quietly, as if watching the small, broken world that had somehow survived the storm. Jake sat on the floor of the control room, his hands still trembling from exhaustion. His face was streaked with soot, his jacket torn, and a deep bruise darkened his arm. Pix hovered beside him, its lights dim but steady. "Status report," Jake muttered. Pix beeped weakly. "Reactor stable. Life support, 70%. Hull integrity, 42%. Crew, alive." Jake gave a small, tired grin. "That last one's the only one that matters." Down the hall, Lyra was in the med bay, patching up a cut across her shoulder. The purple of her skin glowed faintly under the soft light. When she heard Jake's footsteps, she turned and smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes. "You shouldn't be walking yet," she said. "Neither should you," Jake replied. Lyra laughed softly, then winced as the wound stung.
It will heal.
"My kind recover fast." Jake leaned against the doorframe, studying her. There was strength in her stillness, not the kind born from power, but from pain survived. "You saved us," he said quietly. She shook her head. "We saved each other." The next few days were slow, quiet, and peaceful in a strange way. They repaired what they could, welded new plates, and sealed the cracks. The once cold station now bore the marks of battle, but it also felt more alive than ever. Sometimes Jake would find Lyra standing near the main window, her gaze lost in the stars. Once he joined her. "They'll come again," he said softly. She nodded. "Maybe, but not soon. They lost ships. They'll need time to rebuild." Jake folded his arms. "Good. Gives me time to fix the defense grid." Lyra turned to him with a faint smile. "You plan to stay here forever?" He shrugged. "It's home. Ugly, loud, half-broken, but it's mine." She was quiet for a moment, Then she said, "Maybe it can be ours." Jake looked at her surprised. She wasn't joking. There was warmth in her eyes, shy, unsure, but real. He smiled. "I'd like that." Days turned into weeks. The station became a strange kind of sanctuary, a place between worlds. Lyra grew stronger. She painted alien symbols on the station walls, marks of her people, but instead of their harsh silver, she painted them gold. "For a new beginning," she said. Jake fixed up an old greenhouse module that hadn't worked in years. Together they planted seeds from both their worlds, hardy alien roots and small earth plants that somehow adapted to the cold. "Life finds a way," Jake said one morning as the first green sprout broke through the soil. Lyra smiled. "So do we." Pix hovered nearby, projecting a small light over the plants. "I am officially a gardener now," it declared proudly. Jake laughed. "Congratulations, Pix." At night, the stars looked different. Not closer, but kinder somehow. Jake and Lyra often sat near the window, sharing food, stories, and silence. One evening, as the soft glow of distant suns filled the room, Lyra said quietly, "When I was young, I dreamed of flying away. I thought the stars would save me. But I never imagined they would lead me here." Jake smiled gently. "Funny thing about the stars, they don't choose where you end up." "You do." She looked at him. "Then maybe I chose right." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the station, the whisper of recycled air, and the faint crackle of the stars filled the silence. Then Lyra reached out, slowly, uncertainly, and placed her hand over his. Jake didn't move. He didn't need to. The warmth of her touch said everything words couldn't. Outside, the wreckage of the enemy ships drifted silently through space, cold reminders of what had been overcome. Inside, two souls who had once been unwanted, unloved and unseen, had found something they never expected: belonging. Weeks later, the station's beacon began transmitting again, a soft, pulsing light across the dark. Not a distress signal this time, but a new one. Pix floated near the console, curious. "Message content?" it asked. Jake typed a few words into the system, then smiled. "Simple one. For anyone who's lost." On the beacon screen, the message glowed bright across the stars. "Refuge Station 9. Open to all. No one unwanted here." Lyra read it quietly, then looked at him. "No one unwanted?" Jake nodded. "That's the rule." She smiled, and for the first time it wasn't a sad smile. It was hope, shining in her silver eyes like a sunrise across the void. Outside, the stars burned bright, lighting a new dawn for a lonely mechanic and the fat alien woman who had once said, "No man wants me." Now someone did, not out of pity, but out of understanding, and in the heart of the endless night they had built a home.